My name is Ted, and I'm a 45-year-old accountant living in the bustling city of Chicago, where the wind off Lake Michigan bites right through your coat in winter, and the skyscrapers make you feel small but determined to climb. I've always been the steady guy, the one who shows up early to the office, crunches numbers without complaint, and makes sure everything balances out just right. For 20 years, I worked at Harlan Financial Services, a mid-sized firm downtown that handled investments for big clients, and I prided myself on being the backbone of the place, reliable, honest, with a dry sense of humor that got me through the long hours. What made me tick was my wife, Sarah. She was my rock, a vibrant elementary school teacher with a laugh that could light up the gloomiest Chicago day, and we'd been married for 18 years, building a cozy life in our two-bedroom apartment on the north side, complete with a little balcony where we'd grill burgers in summer and watch the fireworks on the 4th of July. But 2 years ago, cancer hit her like a freight train, stage 4 breast cancer, the doctors said, and from that moment our world shrank to hospital visits, chemo sessions, and me juggling double shifts to cover the medical bills that insurance wouldn't touch. I was her caregiver, her cheerleader, working late nights while she slept, whispering promises that we'd beat this thing together. People always said I had this quiet strength, the kind that doesn't shout but just keeps going, and folks at work knew it too. They'd pat my back and say, "Ted, you're a good man." But then came the day that shattered everything. It was a rainy Tuesday in October, the kind where the gray sky matches your mood, and I got the call from the hospital at 7:45 a.m. Sarah was gone, slipped away peacefully in her sleep after fighting so hard. I was numb, barely holding it together as I drove to the office to break the news to my boss, Mr. Victor Harlan, hoping maybe he'd give me some time off to grieve. Harlan was the nemesis I never saw coming, a slick 50-something executive with a fake tan, gold cufflinks, and a reputation for squeezing every dime out of his employees. He'd built the firm on shady deals, but I always looked the other way because I needed the job. I stumbled into his office, tears streaming, and choked out, "Victor, Sarah passed this morning. I need some bereavement leave." He barely looked up from his computer, smirked, and said, "Ted, sorry to hear that, but your performance has been slipping, too many absences. You're fired, effective immediately. Clean out your desk." Fired. On the day my wife died, I begged, pleaded, but he called security, and they escorted me out like a criminal while coworkers whispered and stared. That betrayal lit a fire in my gut amid the grief. The problem wasn't just losing my job, it was this smug tyrant who saw my pain as weakness and kicked me when I was down. I was unsatisfied, broken, facing eviction, mounting bills, and a future that looked as empty as our apartment without Sarah. Harlan had become my nemesis, untouchable in his corner office, while I spiraled into despair. After the funeral, a small gathering of friends and family under drizzling skies, I tried to pick up the pieces by applying for unemployment and new jobs, but nothing stuck. Every interview ended with, "Sorry, Ted, we need someone more available." Bills piled up. The mortgage on our place, Sarah's final medical debts, even her casket flowers I charged on credit. I sold her jewelry, our wedding rings, anything to scrape by, but Harlan's firing had blackballed me. Whispers spread that I was unreliable, and doors slammed shut. Desperate, I confronted him at the office one evening, slipping past security with a fake delivery badge. "Victor, you can't do this to me," I said, voice shaking. He laughed. "Get out, loser, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing." The cops showed up, and now I had a no trespass order, strike one. Things got worse. I sank into depression, barely eating, sleeping on Sarah's side of the bed, clutching her pillow that still smelled like her lavender shampoo. Friends drifted away, unable to handle my grief, and I hit rock bottom when the bank foreclosed on the apartment, forcing me into a dingy motel on the south side, the kind with roaches and flickering neon signs. One night, staring at the peeling wallpaper, I remembered the tax files I'd handled for Harlan, irregularities I'd ignored, like fake deductions and offshore accounts hiding $10 million in unreported income. He'd bragged about it once over drinks, calling it creative accounting. That was my opportunity, a way to fight back, so I started digging, calling old contacts for copies of documents. But Harlan caught wind, someone tipped him off, and he sued me for defamation, claiming I was slandering his good name to get revenge. The lawsuit drained my savings, and the judge threw out my countersuit because I had no proof yet. Harlan gloated in depositions, "Ted's just a grieving widower grasping at straws." Hurdle after hurdle, my whistleblower tip to the Internal Revenue Service got lost in bureaucracy, anonymous calls to the press went nowhere, and private investigators I hired ghosted me after Harlan's lawyers threatened them. The stakes skyrocketed when he froze my final paycheck and garnished what little unemployment I had left, leaving me homeless, sleeping in my beat-up Ford on the lakefront, scavenging food from shelters. Internal demons clawed at me, guilt over not saving Sarah, rage at Harlan's cruelty, and a voice whispering to give up. One freezing night, hypothermia setting in as snow fell, I sat in my car with a bottle of cheap whiskey, ready to end it all, certain everything was lost. Sarah's photo on the dashboard stared back, her eyes saying, "Fight, Ted." That was my lowest point, broken beyond repair. The problem, not just the firing, but a life in ruins, Harlan thriving while I froze. But something snapped. I wouldn't let him win. With my last $20, I bought coffee at a diner and pieced together evidence from memory and scraps, bank statements, emails I'd screenshot years ago on a hidden USB drive I'd forgotten in my glove box. I cleaned up, shaved, and marched to the Internal Revenue Service office downtown, not anonymously this time, but in person, dumping every detail of the $10 million tax fraud on the desk of Agent Mario Lopez, a no-nonsense investigator with sharp eyes. "This man's a crook," I said, voice steady for the first time in months. "He fired me the day my wife died, but that's just the start. Here's proof he's evaded taxes for years through shell companies in the Caymans." She listened, verified on the spot, and by noon, federal agents were raiding Harlan Financial. Climax hit like a storm. News helicopters buzzed overhead as Harlan was handcuffed outside his office, screaming, "This is Ted's doing, that bastard." Reporters swarmed, and the story exploded, front page of the Tribune. CEO busted in massive tax scheme after firing grieving employee. I risked it all, testifying in the grand jury, facing Harlan's glares across the courtroom, digging deep into that quiet strength Sarah always saw in me. The consequences were poetic. Harlan's empire crumbled, clients fled, and he faced 20 years in federal prison plus fines that bankrupted him. Me. The government rewarded whistleblowers like me with a cut of the recovered funds, $3 million, enough to buy a house outright, pay off debts, and start a foundation in Sarah's name for cancer families. My new normal was peaceful, a lakeside cottage in Michigan, consulting gigs on legit books and volunteering at shelters, stronger, wiser, with Sarah's laugh echoing in my heart. Loose ends tied, Harlan wrote me a pathetic apology from jail, which I burned. But as close to the end as it gets, that unexpected twist. Agent Lopez called one evening saying an anonymous donor matched my whistleblower payout, doubling it to $6 million. Turns out it was one of Harlan's jilted clients avenging their own losses. Justice, full circle, and me finally free.